Hello, welcome back to everyone that's tuned in to the American Ultra Stock channel. Here we are again. It's not the typical introduction where I say it's Braden and I, because today we have a very special guest. We have Thomas right here in the video. We're going to leave a link in the description to his channel. Check it out. Really nice content. We're happy to have you here, Thomas, and hopefully you're going to enjoy the discussion we're going to have. This video will be reviewing the players and making predictions on the aspirations for the players that have a lot to fight for in the season still. Players that are looking to get trophies under their belt, players that are fighting for their lives against relegation, and also some players that are trying to get promoted. We've seen the emergence of the Maloney as well, who became an 18 player. Last year he was in the second division. We got quite a few guys this time around fighting to get their names in the top 5 leagues. But straight to the point, Braden, I'll let you do the honors and start reviewing the player who, in my opinion, is probably the most consistent guy we've had as far as A-teamers go, Wes McKennie. He's playing for Juventus. He's still got Coppa Italia and the Scudetto that he's fighting for. Right after you, we'll go to Thomas and have the review. Braden, take it away.
Yeah, like you said, McKennie's been probably our best player this season. Him and Jedi, I think, are the top 2. Weah's there as well at Juve, more of a bench player, a rotation player. Yeah, I've been a little disappointed with his season so far, but McKennie's been absolutely exceptional. The way he's come back from that disappointing spell at Leeds. I know, Thomas, you're a Leeds fan. I'm sure you weren't too thrilled about that. But the way he came back, fought for a spot at Juve, he was supposed to leave in the summer, but he impressed Allegri, and he's untouchable now in that squad. A lot of people are saying he's been their best player for the first half of the season. They have a bit of an uphill battle in the league. The Inter have started to bridge the gap a little bit. They're now 7 points on top with a game in hand, but anything is possible. There's still a lot of season left to be played. I think the Coppa Italia is really going to be where they look to make their mark and get a trophy. And at the end of the day, I think it's really about getting back in the Champions League for Juve, since due to the point deduction last season, they did finish 7th outside of Europe completely. And with this season, they've only had the domestic stuff to focus on, and I think it's really benefited them.
Yeah, Thomas, what do you think? Like Braden said, they do seem to be putting all their eggs into the basket of the Coppa Italia, since they just got a little setback this week playing against Udinese.
Yeah.
What do you think?
They've had a tough run of form, honestly. It has been tough for them in the last few games. I mean, if they didn't, I think, what is the last 4 games they've dropped points, they'd be right there if they didn't drop points. So yeah, I think that the Scudetto is kind of out of the question at this point. It's going to come down to the Coppa Italia. That's really their best bet as far as getting all the eggs in one basket. To your point, Braden, I think they got the Champions League spot locked up. I think they're 10 points clear of 4th place. So they're styling on the Champions League position. To Tim Weah on that point, Tim has really just been, I don't know, kind of like a tactical substitution recently. He did get a few minutes a couple weeks ago. He got a longer look and a start. But yeah, I feel like he's really just been a tactical substitution. And I don't think that really affects his impact on the U.S. men's national team, though, if I'm going to be honest. Berhalter obviously loves him. And to be honest, he plays great with us. It's something about some of these guys, when they put on the U.S. men's national team jersey, all those things at their club kind of go out the window, and they just play differently. I think you're right on the money with the Coppa Italia being really their best bet for getting any kind of trophy moving into the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'll agree with you guys. I think that's where they're going to get a silverware, and I do think that Juve will get it. That jersey weighs heavy in Italy, and they'll probably get something. But since we are talking about the Italian soccer calcio, we got to go to our main man, Pulisic and Musah, who's companion to him. A lot of people seem to forget that Musah's there lately. He hasn't got minutes. Last time he got a more than 40 minutes playing was 8th of January, so quite a long time ago. But where I think that they're going to be looking to get a trophy, their hands on a trophy, would be the Europa League. If you look at the teams that are left there, I think that Milan not only is the biggest one, but they have the best squad. I really do think that it's up to them or Benfica. I think it's going to be a bit of a tricky one, but they definitely have a chance to get their hands on the silverware. What do you think, Braden? Do you think that Pulisic is going to make the full turnaround and revival and get a trophy in his maiden season in Milan?
I do think, like you said, the Europa League is really their only chance at this point. They've had a pretty down season in Serie A. They are sitting third place. They should be getting a Champions League spot for next season again. And in the Champions League, they were very unlucky to get the group of death. They didn't really have the best of campaigns, but understandably so with that hard of a group. But I think you're discounting some of the other teams in this competition. Liverpool are looking very, very good this season. I don't know if this will be the primary focus for them. They're going to want to win the Premier League, but they do still have one of the best squads, probably the best in this competition. So they're always going to be a threat, especially in Klopp's last season with them. I think he's going to want to try to win everything that he can. Leverkusen as well are so good this season, unbeaten, I think, in all competitions. Breeze through the group stage. I think they're going to be a tough one as well, looking to win the Bundesliga and this competition as well. But like you said, Milan are probably one of the most storied clubs up there with Liverpool in this competition. They should be looking to win it. For a club as big as Milan, if you're in the Europa League, you're always looking to win that competition since the Champions League's the main goal. And honestly, I think Pulisic and Musah, Pulisic in particular, has been a little bit disappointing this season in Europe, in the Champions League. I think he's disappeared a little bit in some of the bigger games. So I'm looking to him in the Europa League to really step up and make that spot his own and really show how he can come up clutch in big moments like we saw at Chelsea a couple times.
What do you think, Thomas? Do you think that he's going to, like Braden said, he did make a mark when he was in the Champions League? It's a great chance for him to step up. I think Leon has had a downward season. So do you think that Pulisic's going to be integral to them to get their hands on the trophy? And do you think, you mentioned Juventus, but do you think they already have a locked up spot in the Champions League as well?
I do, yeah. I would say Milan that definitely has a locked up spot in the Champions League as well. Sitting at third place. They're also 10 points clear of fourth. It'd be hard for them to drop that many points. And I think, Bologna's 10 points below them in fifth. It would be hard for them to drop that many points and not hold on to that Champions League spot. As far as Europa League goes, I think Christian Pulisic, I agree with you, Braden. I think he's had a really down year. I think he hasn't scored since like the 30th of December or something. So it's been a while since he's found the back of the net. But I think he's a big game player. I think we would all agree on that anytime there seems to be more television cameras on, he seems to find a way to provide an assist, provide a goal. He's just one of those guys who really can find a way to play and show out in those big games. And to the competition point of the Europa League, there are some, I don't think that they should even overlook their competition tomorrow. Stade Rennais is a good club, has a lot of incredibly good, talented young players. Desiree Doué, Arnaud Calimundo, young French players that are on big clubs' radars all over Europe. It's definitely not a team that AC Milan can, breeze past, especially because I think Stade Rennais is in like 7th or 8th place in the French league right now, Ligue 1, so they don't really have anything to play for as much. They're kind of far back in the points. So this is, their Super Bowl, so to speak, this year, I think. So that's a tough challenge, I think, for AC Milan even tomorrow. But I do think AC Milan is one of the better teams left in the tournament. I think they have a really good chance at winning it all. To the Yunus Musah point, he seems to be more of a tactical sub too, but not really. He's coming in more in like the 60th, 50th minutes of these games. So he's getting a strong amount of time to close out games. So that means the coach trusts him. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not really worried about either one of those guys, but I do think the Europa League is obviously their only thing to really chase for the rest of the season, in my opinion. I just think that the Scudetto's out of shot, and really that's the only thing left for them.
So just a quick roundup before we go to the next one. Yes or no, Braden, is Pully and Mula, are both of them going to get a trophy?
No, I don't think so. I think McKennie and Weah will. I think they'll win the Coppa Italia, but not Milan.
What about you, Thomas? Yes or no? Who are Pulisic and Musah getting a trophy, or is it just McKennie?
I'm going to go no on both, honestly. I just think Juventus has a tough run of form lately. They're just really not playing sharp, and I just think that I'm looking a little bit pessimistically at it. I think they might actually both have what anyone in Italy would consider a complete failure of a season. So I just think I think it's Inter Milan's year.
From a giant of a club, clubs in Italy, we'll go to the giant of a club in the Netherlands, where I think that if we are pessimistic by any chance about the other guys, we can be very optimistic on these ones. We got Dest, Tillman, and Pepi, all of them with a good amount of goal contributions. This is actually crazy. I'm just going to read it really quickly. A goal and 4 assists for Dest, 5 goals and 3 assists for Tillman, and 5 goals and 1 assist for Pepi so far this season. Granted, Dest is the only one that gets consistent as a starter, but they are looking really strong. Only one loss the entire season. Yes, it did come against Feyenoord in the cup, but I think they're looking really strong in the league, and I'm very curious to see where you guys think they can go in the Champions League. Braden, what do you think? How far is their ceiling? Is the title already clinched, or are they going to pull a Tottenham here, or do you think they're going to won it already? And how far do you think they'll go in the Champions League?
I think pulling up Botafogo would be more appropriate in this context. But I think the real question is, are they going to lose in the league at all this season? I think the title's wrapped up, but there are a couple games remaining that are tough, particularly against Feyenoord at home. I think is going to be the big one. If they do lose, it will be in that game. But honestly, I think they have the title wrapped up. It's a shame they couldn't win the cup as well, do the domestic double. But the focus now is on the Champions League against Dortmund. And although Dortmund have been very good in the Champions League this season, this is a very winnable matchup for PSV. I think Dortmund have been struggling all season, especially domestically. They have a lot of injury problems right now. And honestly, I think this matchup comes at the perfect time for PSV. And I think they can capitalize on their chance. I think they can at least go to the quarterfinals like we saw Ajax do back in 2019 when they had that historic run to the semifinals. I think this PSV team, they're definitely playing better domestically than that Ajax team was. It remains to be seen whether they can keep it up in Europe, but I think against Dortmund, they have a very, very good chance.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. What do you think, Thomas? Just on the first part of the question, again, do you think the league is all but clinched already? And what do you think? Do you think they'll pull off a bit of an upset? I don't think it's that big of an upset, but do you think they'll pull off an upset and do revenge on Dortmund for what they did to Gio?
Yeah, I think PSV's got the league locked up. Like you guys are saying, their run is incredible. I mean, to have only 2 draws, 1 Champions League loss, I mean, they got beaten down by Arsenal pretty good. And then, the KNVB Cup loss to Feyenoord. Those, I mean, besides that, that's an incredible run of form. I honestly think Dortmund should be afraid to play PSV this upcoming week. I think PSVs are actually a dark horse, somewhat favorite to maybe actually win the Champions League this year. It's pretty, I mean, in the history of the Champions League, it's very often that a team that doesn't belong somehow makes it to the end of the Champions League, and that team is very often Dutch. So I could see them making it all the way. Whether or not they win or not, it's one game. Anybody can win one game. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them make it that far. So yeah, I actually really, really am high on PSV. Their depth is fantastic. All our guys, most of our guys, with the exception of Dest, are coming in off the bench, and they're putting in fantastic minutes. I think Malik Tillman's only played 700 minutes, which is like the equivalent of like 8 games, and he scored 5 goals, which is fantastic. Pepi's played, I looked it up today, Pepi's played 229 minutes, and he scored 5 goals, that's the equivalent of 2.5 full games. I mean, obviously, when you're coming in, some of these games, he's coming in, it's 4-0, 3-0 already, so these are garbage time goals sometimes, but I really, really like PSV. Their depth is good. I think they have a strong chance to end this season with 2 trophies. Definitely 1, but I could see them with 2. We'll see. Bold prediction.
No, that's definitely bold. And if they do that, I'm pretty sure you're the first one to say it. You look like a genius, Thomas. So
well, you'd be the first one to say that.
I'll be hoping that happens. You're new around here, so I'll say I'm a Serginho Dest fanboy. I'll definitely be there for Sergio to win the Champions League. But moving on to another league, really close geographically, but a completely different beast. The top 5 leagues in the Bundesliga. We got 2 guys, Skelly and Pefok, who I think Pefok has quietly been having a really good season. They are in the DFB Pokal, and they are playing the team that I'm not going to try to pronounce their name, that beat Bayern Munich. They're on a crazy run. They beat Frankfurt as well, but honestly, within a shout of the semifinal, and I think they could be facing Leverkusen in the final if things go well. Braden, do you think that Scally and Pefok can get a trophy here?
Yeah, like you're saying, I think the DFB Pokal provides a great opportunity for these players. They're not having the best of seasons in the Bundesliga with Gladbach. It's just pretty uneventful mid-table. Nothing to really speak about. Some good games, some bad games. Pefok's been battling injuries. But the game against Saarbrücken provides a great opportunity to get into the semifinals where they'd play Kaiserslautern, a 2nd division club. Saarbrücken are in the 3rd division. Basically, it's a cakewalk to the final. I know Saarbrücken have beaten a lot of good clubs. They just took down Frankfurt and Bayern Munich before them. But if you look at it on paper, at least, Gladbach should have a pretty easy route here. Kaiserslautern haven't even beaten anyone themselves, just a couple of other 2nd division clubs. So a spot in the final against probably Bayer Leverkusen away, who could be chasing a treble this season. I mentioned there should be contending for the Europa League and the Bundesliga as well. And honestly, when that final comes, I think they're going to have other priorities to worry about. And I think it's the perfect path for Scally and Pefok to come in, win the trophy, and at least leave the season with something, because it's been a pretty uneventful couple of years at Borussia Mönchengladbach. They've fallen off a little bit from what they used to be last decade, and I think a trophy would do a lot for the club.
Yeah, we'll be hoping that they do get their hands on that. And I want to go to you now, Thomas. Same question, but I also want to get a new perspective here. It's nice to have someone from the outside. At the end of your take on whether you think they're going to win or not, would you call up Pefok? Granted, he does get injured a lot, but would you call up Pefok? Do you think his time's coming? Time's coming to get his hands on this trophy as well.
Would I call up Pefok? Was that the question? One more time. I'll start with you. I guess I'll end with that. So we'll start. Yeah, I think they have a great chance, Mönchengladbach, to win the Pokal. Obviously, like you were saying, their path to the cup is fantastic. They couldn't ask for a better path to the cup with Saarbrücken. I think is their next game in March, and I mean, you couldn't ask for a better opponent in terms of a cup game. But like I've said, cup games are, things happen in cup games. Crowds get excited, especially when with these lower level teams. That's all their fans have to cheer. All they have to cheer for. So I think that can have a big impact on some of these games. But I do think they actually are favorites to win the trophy, and that is one I expect them to win. Ironically, though, I don't think Mönchengladbach's completely free of relegation. They're only 6 points free from the bottom right now. So they do have some things to worry about. And to your point, I don't think our American compatriots are necessarily very happy there. Just today, I read an article that Joe Scally was looking for new representation, and I'm assuming he's going to go with the same representation that Gio just switched to. And so that says to me that he's looking to move to England. So I don't know where things are going with Mönchengladbach in terms of if they will go down. I would imagine they stay mid-table. I think they're like 11th right now, but that 11th is, there's like 3 or 4 teams with a 1 or 2 point spread. So they're 6, like I said, they're 6 points clear. That's 2 matches. So they got to get it together. But I do think they are favorites to win the Pokal. And then as far as calling in Jordan Pefok or Sibachu, I think the strikers we have right now are playing exceptionally well. I think he scored 5 goals in 16 matches this season. So to me, that's a decent goal scoring record. It's a better goal scoring record than I've ever had in the Bundesliga. But I think the Sargents. I mean, Balogun's not playing to maybe his potential right now, but he's just I think he's more class. I just think he has better potential to finish a ball. A lot of these guys who are playing in the EFL Championship, I mean, Haji Wright just came off a brace. Some of these guys are making a good case, to get that call up over him. And I think Sibachu, he scored recently an early goal, but, just not enough to really warrant a call up, in my opinion. So, yeah.
All right. Interesting. Oh, yeah, definitely. It's nice to get a different view. And, just to touch on the topic, we know that Paxton's fighting relegation in the Eredivisie, but again, we're going first with the guys that are contending for trophies, and then we'll get to the fun stuff with the ones fighting relegation. But now moving on to, I don't know if I should say this. It's a bit of a relegation topic already, but technically Gio and Matt Turner in England, they are fighting for a trophy. They're still in the FA Cup. They're playing United. United have done a lot of shockers lately, so you never know what can happen, really. And what do you think? Since this one is a little bit hybrid and we talk about both, Braden, are Forest going to stay up? And do you think they can pull off an upset and do a deep run in the FA Cup? And are Gio and Matt even going to play in that? Do you think they're going to be instrumental and get good minutes there?
I actually think that Matt Turner will be playing in the FA Cup, mainly because Stells appears to be their new first choice in the league, and they have tended to stick with a backup goalkeeper, usually Vokodimus. In the Cup, Turner has played a little bit more recently in their last couple of games, and he was actually really good in the win over Bristol City in penalties, despite the team not having that good of a performance. So I think he will keep his spot against United. Whether they win that game, it remains to be seen. Gio could have an extended role, especially since it's a midweek game in the Cup. You never know. He hasn't started yet. They're trying to kind of easing him into the action. He's looked pretty good in all of his limited minutes. So I think he could be starting that game as well. But honestly, in the FA Cup, I'm more looking forward to Haji Wright going against Maidstone United, the story of the competition. I think that's a pretty manageable path for them. And who knows, if Bournemouth as well, the final team left in with an American, if they go far enough, even if they make it past the next round against Leicester, we could see Tyler Adams make a return and make a late run for that competition as well. But getting into the Premier League with Forest, I don't think they'll go down. They still have that charge from a while ago, but that seems to have disappeared somewhat. I don't think they're going to get a point deduction. If anything, Everton would probably get another one, which would help their chances even more of staying up. And ultimately, I just don't think there's enough quality between some of the teams at the bottom to keep them up. Honestly, I think with the recent departure of Roy Hodgson, I think Palace might even have a better chance at going down than Forest do.
Yeah, I think that deduction thing, since it died out a little bit, it's likely not going to happen. It would be heartbreaking if it did. But yeah, you're right to mention that we have other guys. I didn't mention Tyler because I don't even know if he really played this season. I hope he does. And Thomas, you're a Leeds fan. Do you think, jumping onto this entire competition, the FA Cup, which team with Americans has the best chance of making a deep run? Like Braden said, Coventry's, Haji Wright's Coventry there as well. But also, do you think that they're safe in the Premier League?
To be honest, I don't think any of the teams with Americans have a great chance at making a very deep run in the FA Cup this season, if I'm going to be honest. I do think that Nottingham will stay up. I think they're actually kind of finding some form right now. Alonga's playing great. Hudson-Odoi looks fantastic. And obviously bringing in Gio doesn't hurt. I think Gio is going to start nipping at Gibbs White's heels a little bit and potentially take some time from him. Could potentially take some starts. And I definitely expect to see Gio start in the next FA Cup game here. I just think that's his opportunity to get a start and get some solid minutes and for the Nottingham Forest coach to actually see what he can do on the field. To be honest, I've watched the last two games and I've seen his substitution, and he changed the game, especially this first game on. He completely changed the game. He was controlling possession. He was really getting everybody on the team involved. I was really impressed with the way he came out and played the game. He plays with so much confidence. I really love watching Gio play. He's just a fantastic player. And then as far as Matt Turner goes, I think he'll definitely start. Unfortunately, the only minutes Matt's seeing the rest of the season are going to be in cup games. Unless Sells gets hurt, he's not going to see a Premier League game the rest of the season. I think that's just the unfortunate reality of it. I love Matt. I'm still high on Matt. I think it's just a bump in the road. I think he's still a good quarterback. Good. Yeah, it's been a Super Bowl weekend, huh, boys? I think he's still a great goalkeeper. And I think he's still the U.S. men's national team one goalkeeper. So, I think that, honestly, I don't think any of those teams have much of a chance at actually, winning the FA Cup. To the Bournemouth point, I do think Tyler might be back a little sooner than we think. I know last month they had him running around a little bit, not sprinting, but he was exercising. So we could see him potentially, end of March, potentially. So he could be back. Curious to see how that goes. So if Bournemouth does somehow make a run, I'll be happy. That'd be nice for them. I'm a little bitter because, my boy left Leeds and went to Bournemouth. So I'd like to see Bournemouth drop down the table. But other than that, I would always cheering for Americans. That's all we do, right?
All right. So now moving on to the best signing of the winter window. Definitely the best transfer that Americans, as far as Americans go. We know he's not really 100% American, but we'll take as my fellow Southern Brazilian guy. I never criticized Johnny. Just kidding. A lot of you guys that have stuck around probably have seen that. But I'm happy that he's doing well at Betis. He got registered. It's confirmed he's going to play in the Conference League. And I think that Real Betis, they could get a good chance of getting their hands on the trophy. It's such a nice club, such a historic fan base as well. And I think it's looking good for them in that competition. Do you think, Braden, it could be a Cinderella season where Johnny goes from playing in Brazil to being a starter for Betis and finishes the season with his hands on a trophy?
I'm not sure. Honestly, I was really hoping he'd win the Libertadores before leaving, because then at least he'd have some sort of silverware this season. But he has been a very pleasant surprise to a lot of people, just slotting in perfectly into that Betis team. And as this video is out, the first leg against Dinamo Zagreb will have been played. I think Johnny should be starting in that one, going the full 90. And I think this round's going to be pretty comfortable for them. Betis are having a little bit of a down year in La Liga, but in Europe they should be pretty fine against Zagreb at least. A couple of the other teams in this competition are pretty strong. the likes of Aston Villa in particular, I think are going to be the main contenders, especially with the European specialist Unai Emery at the helm. They're going to be the ones to beat. But honestly, outside of them, I think Real Betis are probably one of the best teams in the competition and should be looking to at least make a deep run, even if they don't win it. So it is possible he ends the season with some trophy, some silverware, especially since Betis, like I said, don't really have too much to fight for in La Liga, mainly just pushing up and trying to get a better European spot. But I think they could at least make a deep run. I'm hoping semifinals bare minimum.
Oh, so that would be a nice run, and I'm pretty sure that Johnny would be really important to get that far in the competition. What do you think, Thomas? Do you think that Johnny can get his hands on that silverware, or do you think his run stops close to the title, but just not enough?
Yeah, I'd say he actually has a really strong chance of getting his hands on the title. I think Eintracht Frankfurt are going to be the favorites right now. I'm a little biased, though, because there's an Eintracht Frankfurt flag right there on my bed. So I'm also an Eintracht Frankfurt fan, so I do have some biases there. But yeah, I do think he does have a good chance of the teams left remaining besides Frankfurt. I think that they're the team. They would be the team I'd be most afraid of to play. Cardoso's been playing great. I think he won player of the match in his last start. He's been looking fantastic. I think he's really pushing for a starting spot with the U.S. men's national team too, especially with players like Tyler Adams hurt. He could be, if he keeps up the form, he's looking to potentially take a spot on that lineup. But yeah, I do think he has a good shot, but at the moment, I think he will probably come up just short. I think Frankfurt's probably the team to beat.
Yeah, I hope that he wins it, but I agree with you guys. I don't think they're ultimately going to do it. I just can't see Betis going all the way. And I think I disagree with you, Braden. I think they might find a surprise in this very round. But I think that Zagreb's really good. I've been watching a lot of Croatian League lately, so I somehow rate them. But I think it will be a tough game. But I hope that Johnny gets that trophy. It would be really nice. What a season that would be. And now, since I just talked about Dinamo Zagreb, I've been watching a lot of Croatian League for whatever reason lately. But we got Rokas Pukštas. He doesn't play for my favorite team there, but he's a great player for Hajduk Split. I think that this is a really interesting league. It goes under the radar because it's hard to watch, granted. But ultimately, we have an American starting and fighting for a trophy there in the league, being a really important player as basically being a teenager. So it's really impressive. Braden, do you think that Pukštas takes this one away and breaks my heart as a Rijeka fan?
I really, really hope he does. They just signed Ivan Perisic to give them a late season charge. He will be out with an injury, but he's on loan for free. He's going to be fighting for his boyhood club to help win the trophy for the first time in, I believe, 23 years. And I really hope that they do it, man. I would love to see Pukštas get his hands on a trophy this season, especially after they bottled I think it's like the Super Cup, basically, of Croatia to Dinamo Zagreb earlier this season, like you mentioned. It's basically a three-way title race, which is pretty rare in Europe to see. So I think it's actually a pretty underrated title race within Europe in general. Like you said, it's kind of hard to watch the league, so that's probably why. Pukštas has been having a pretty decent season. Like you said, he's a starter, guaranteed. He plays week in, week out every game, basically 90 minutes every week. And yeah, like I said, I really hope he does it. And I actually am going to back him. I'm going to back him. I'm going to back Hajduk Split to finally break the title drought. I think it's their year.
Wouldn't that be something? That would be nice to see. What do you think, Thomas? Do you think that one of our best Olympic eligible and Olympic squad players who's getting consistent minutes there in Europe gets to lift the Croatian League title?
To be honest, I don't know enough about the Croatian League to give an honest opinion on this. I genuinely don't watch it. I'm obviously familiar with the player. I'm mostly familiar with his manager rejecting call-ups. I'd love to see him play in a U.S. men's national team jersey a little more often, but I do understand he's obviously a very important part to that team. If he's not letting him go, I think he was called up to Camp Cupcake and they didn't bring him in, or his manager denied the call-up. I understand denying the call-up, but I would like to see a little more of the player. And like I said, I really just don't follow that league, so I don't have an opinion on it. But because he's American, you bet he's taking it down.
Yeah, that would be nice. I think it's really nice that we have youngsters now playing in these leagues. And the Balkans, although it's really hard to watch the leagues, the passion that they have is really, really great. And make no mistake, it's a lot of pressure to play for Hajduk Split as a starter. So I agree with you guys. It would be nice for him to win, but I'll be hoping that Rijeka wins. It's the most Italian club in Croatia, so I got to go root for them. But now moving on to another league that is not one of the mainstream ones as well. But granted, they do have a spot for the Champions League, so it is technically a better league. We got CCV, Cameron Carter-Vickers, who just renewed his contract with Celtic. Make that of what you will. But he's fighting for that very difficult titles. What a league. It's such a difficult one. What do you think, Braden? Do they win it for the 1000th time?
Well, Rangers are actually back in the title race. Currently, they're tied on points, same number of games played, a little bit difference when it comes to the win-draw-loss record. One more win for Rangers, 3 more draws for Celtic, but they're tied on points, and they're actually tied on goal difference as well. So it's looking to be a very, very good title race coming up. They do play on the second last day of the season at Rangers, so I think it's going to be a great game to watch, the Old Firm Derby. But yeah, like you said, I do think I will back Celtic for now, just to win the league. I think it's going to be tough to beat Rangers away, but honestly, I think they're the better team. I think they've been the better team all season. Like you said, there is a European spot on the line, but I don't think it matters. Whoever wins, regardless, is just going to get battered in the Champions League group stage if they even make it that far. So honestly, I think the fact that we're even still having to talk about this is a bit of a concern for CCV because our center back depth is pretty bad. There's spots up for grabs, and the fact that he just signed a long-term extension there kind of shows a lack of ambition for me. I'm going to compare it to the Miles Robinson staying at Cincinnati move. It's probably a lot less money considering the finances that Celtic have compared to MLS sides, but I think it shows a similar lack of ambition, especially since there were rumors that Premier League teams were circling around him this window.
Yeah, he was an option for any team that really wanted it on the budget center back, and I think that move would have happened if he really wanted it, but he renewed his contract. But ultimately, when it comes to trophies, Thomas, do you think that he's going to get another one? We know, like Braden said, the Old Firm, it's always them at the top.
Yeah.
CCV gets the title again.
Yeah, it's always Rangers or Celtic, isn't it? I do think that Celtic has the better team. I do think that they're going to win the title this year. It was a little disappointing to see them drop a couple points this, last week or the 2 matches ago, and let Rangers back in the race. And that final match against Rangers in Glasgow is a little bit concerning to end the season. Hopefully it doesn't come down to that, but I think Rangers is going to have a hard time keeping pace. Honestly, they drop matches, whereas Celtic finds a way to find a point in almost every single match. So I do think Rangers is going to have a hard time. I agree with the CCV comments in terms of a little bit of just getting complacent and getting a little too comfortable. I think he could easily be playing for a Premier League team, if not anywhere else in a tier 1 league in Europe. It's really not that much of a challenge to stay in a comfortable zone where you're just continuously winning, and you got to go challenge yourself. So to that point, I would have to agree with you. But I do think that he will. I think he's knocked. He has a knock right now, right? Doesn't he have a slight injury? So I think he's coming off a slight injury. And like you said, he did just get renewed. But also keep in mind that doesn't necessarily nail him down, to Celtic. All these contracts mean nothing nowadays. A 5-year contract could be a 6-month contract, with any kind of clause, or it's amazing how these guys can get out of their contracts nowadays. So I don't really worry about him being locked in. If he did want to move, he'd be able to move away from that contract, I believe. Clubs don't want to keep players there that don't want to be there. But it seems like he wants to be there.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Sometimes renewing just means that you're on the move and the club has a new clause in place. That's what happened with Johnny at Inter. So let's hope that that's the case with CCV. I don't think it is. But this video is prolonging a little bit long. So, guys, we'll cut it short right here. We'll thank you guys that have watched this far. Now, the next one, we're going to do a 2-video series. We're going to be reviewing the players. It's my favorite video, really. The players that are looking to get promoted, fight for their lives against relegation. And that's a very interesting one because we've got a lot of fringe players, Olympic eligible players that are in that bracket. So stay tuned for that one. In the meantime, we want to thank you again. Thank you, Thomas, for being a part of this, making his debut on the channel as a guest. We'll leave a link to his channel right here in the description. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, share with your friends, and put in the comments below which ones. Make a list of the ones that you think will get trophies in their hands. Let's hope that all Americans have a great end of the season, and we'll see you next time.